Hey, how's it going, everybody? You all seem to be really enjoying the Call of Warhammer content, so I'm going to continue to bring it to you. For those of you who have recently subscribed to the channel, thank you very much. Welcome. And if you didn't know, Call of Warhammer is a mod for Medieval 2 that gives a really good snapshot of the Warhammer fantasy setting in general, and gives us a good look at what Total War Warhammer might be like when it finally releases. Of course, it's on Medieval 2, it's on a different game engine, and there are plenty of different features that are going to be added in the final game for Total War Warhammer. But the rosters are pretty awesome. The mod is extremely well done, and I definitely recommend it. But today, I want to talk to you all about the Dark Elves. So the Dark Elves are kind of crappy in the Call of Warhammer mod for a number of reasons. They have a soft cap on some of their most iconic and elite troops that really hurts them. For example, the Black Guard of Nagorand are a really good halberd unit for the Dark Elves, but they're soft capped at 1, meaning that if you bring a second one, you're going to be paying a lot more for that second unit. A lot of their best melee troops are actually lacking shields as well. The Black Guard are a good example, but the Corsairs and the Witch Elves and some of the others are also lacking shields, which means they die very quickly to missile fire and die relatively quickly in melee combat as well. And they're honestly lacking much of what makes their roster so unique. They don't have the chariots, they don't have the Charybdis, they don't have the Hydras or some of the monster units that really give them a lot of flavor. And a lot of those monsters are actually playable with some of the other factions like Chaos and Orcs and Goblins. Like, they have their Trolls and Juggernauts and some of the other units that make the Warhammer tabletop game so unique and interesting. But Dark Elves don't have those units, so that's a problem. But one of the biggest problems, in fact, maybe the biggest, is their Cav unit selection is horrible. They have one unit called the Cold One Knights, which is very iconic. It's a famous unit. It's basically Dark Elves that ride raptors into battle. It's a very cool unit. Looks really awesome in the mod. The problem with the Cold One Knights, which I'll demonstrate very soon here, is that they don't drop their lances on the charge. What is the point of a cavalry unit in Medieval 2 or any Total War game? It's to obliterate as much infantry or cavalry as possible off the charge and then sustain in melee combat. If a unit doesn't drop their lance on the charge, they're not a very good unit, and they're definitely not a good cav unit. So I'm going to show that here, and we're going to talk about why that really hurts the Dark Elves as a faction. So here we get a good look at the Cold One Knights for the Dark Elves. I want to compare the stats between the Cold Ones and the Silver Helms for a second here. So the Silver Helms are a high elf, light cavalry unit. High Elves are obviously known for having very good cavalry, but the attack is 9 for Cold Ones, 8 for Silver Helms. They both have 8 charge bonus. Cold Ones have 22 defense, Silver Helms have 18 defense. Same armor at 11, and the Cold Ones have a shield value of 4, while the Silver Helms have no shield. The Cold Ones cost 3,000, the Silver Helms cost 2,000, so Cold Ones cost 1,000 more, and we're going to see what happens when they go into melee combat against each other. So Cold Ones are going to charge in here against Silver Helms, and guess what they don't do? They don't drop their lances. So what does that mean in a cavalry or an infantry engagement when you send your Cold Ones into combat? Well, the charge bonus is basically tied to the lance. If you don't drop your lance, you don't get a good charge bonus with the cavalry unit. Now, charges are kind of buggy in Medieval 2 anyway. You don't always get great charge bonuses because they don't always run, but the Cold Ones never drop their lance. I've done a bunch of testing. The whole unit, I cannot get them, no matter what I do, to drop their lances. Occasionally, like 2 or 3 guys in the front will drop their lance, but the whole unit won't. So what that means is they're wasting their entire charge bonus. So we're going to see the Silver Helms actually cut through the Cold Ones very easily. These guys are going to, the Silver Helms are going to leave with about half of their unit intact, while the Cold Ones are going to be dead, which is insane because you're paying 1,000 more talents for the Cold Ones. So in Medieval 2 or any Total War game, when you're giving up that charge bonus and not actually doing a ton of damage to your opponent on the charge, that completely obliterates your effectiveness as a cavalry unit, because you simply cannot do the damage that it's required to rout a unit from the field quickly. Cavalry in Medieval 2 is extremely potent, and it's based around the charge bonus, and if you don't get your charge bonus off, you're bad. So, with the Dark Elves, who have no other melee cavalry to speak of, they only have a Dark Elf repeater crossbow cavalry unit, like a horse archer, basically. So with no other horses or cavalry that they can bring to the field, suddenly they don't have anything that can really do the hammer and anvils that win you games in Medieval 2. And when you have the cavalry disadvantage in every single fight, in Call of Warhammer, you're going to be in trouble as a faction. So despite everything I've said about the Dark Elves being kind of crappy in the Call of Warhammer mod, I still want to make the Dark Elves work because I think their aesthetics are awesome and the idea behind their army is awesome. So we're going to be trying to spill some Empire blood for the War God Khaine today. I have a front line of Dark Elf Spears followed up by some Dark Elf Swordsmen, some Har Ganeth Executioners, a Witch Elves of Khaine right there, pretty cool unit, 2 hit points, they're going to be my general unit. Behind that, I have some repeater crossbows, so if those guys get a long time to shoot, they can do a ton of damage to highly armored units. And then there are the Blackguard of Naggarond, one of the elite and very iconic halberd warriors for the Dark Elves. And then some assassins over on my left flank. They throw daggers, actually, kind of like javelins. Very high armor piercing, but they don't have a lot of armor themselves, they don't have shields. And then I have 2 crossbow repeater cavalry. If we look at my Empire opponent today, VOD Gojira will be playing as the Empire. He's got some snipers up front, some halberd warriors behind them, Empire swordsmen, some great swords, and in the back, some Knights of the White Wolf. Extremely high charge bonus. I have to be very, very careful against those guys. So what you might have noticed for my army, as we talk about, okay, some Witch Hunters right here, and then I think he has Knights Panther as his general unit, and he has another pair of Witch Hunters over on the other side. But what you noticed lacking from my Dark Elf army was the Cold Ones. I talked about how crappy they are. The fact that they don't drop their lance completely eliminates them as a viable solution for melee cavalry, and that means that there are no melee cavalry units for the Dark Elves that are worth bringing to the field. So that really hurts them. I'm not going to have anything to do really good hammer and anvils with, so I'm going to have to rely on my repeater crossbow cavalry once they've expended their ammunition to be my melee cavalry. Now they can take off range units from the field. They're going to have a really hard time going toe-to-toe with dedicated melee units. So I have to be very careful with how I use them. But first things first, I have to find a way to cross this field without getting shredded by marksman fire from that front line of snipers that Gojira has. So these guys are, they're not amazing. The Hawkland marksmen aren't an amazing unit, but given enough time to fire, and then they do have really long range. So given enough time to fire, they can cause a lot of damage to my troops. They are gunpowder. They do cause morale penalties. I have to worry about them. So what I'm going to try to do is meet shield with my Dark Elf Spears up front. They are probably my least important units. They're pretty cheap, so I'm going to let them take the brunt of the fire that's coming in right now. Hawkland marksmen are going to open up on them. Going to take some casualties as I move across here, but what you're noticing me do is trying to move behind the hill. So that line over in the back, he has like 3 or 4 of the Hawkland marksmen. The ones that are over on his right flank are going to have a really hard time shooting at the angle they're at right now because I'm kind of moving behind a hill and blocking line of sight. So he's going to notice that and start moving his entire army, but as he's reforming, I have more time to move forward and cover the ground and get into melee combat before he has a ton of time to shoot. So I'm kind of positioning my guys in the trees to shield myself from some of his crossbow fire, and also just kind of get behind that hill there so not all of his marksmen can shoot into my main line. So once I've reshifted my entire army, he is going to be able to open fire as I close this last little gap right here. So he's going to get some good shots off right there. They're all into my Dark Elf Spears, so on my left flank, the Dark Elf Spears are going to take like 15 or 20 casualties as they charge in. Not quite ready to go, and I don't want my Dark Elf Spears to be the first ones in because they're not going to do great against halberd warriors. So I wanted some of my other more elite units to get in there and deal with the halberds. So I've got my Dark Elf Swordsman backing up the Dark Elf Spears, going to get them into melee combat pretty soon here. And actually, right up the middle, he's going to send his Knights Panther. So they're going to kind of charge into one of my Dark Elf Swordsmen and then go through, and he's trying to get at my repeater crossbowmen right now. He's actually going to do a little bit of damage to the repeater crossbows, but I'm going to quickly follow that up with a charge from the Blackguard of Naggarond. He doesn't want to get his general this far into melee combat. He's being a little cavalier with his gen at the moment. They definitely don't want to be fighting halberd warriors that are that elite, so he's going to have to pull out his gen pretty quick here, or he's going to lose way too many men. I see what he's trying to go for there. Getting the repeater crossbows off the field is a really good idea, but he is definitely being pretty overzealous with his gen. So I'm closing them down, trying to kill as many as I can, get some volleys off from the assassins with their dagger throwing capabilities, and did some damage with the halberds as well. Got my Witch Elves of Khaine, that's my general unit, into the flank. They're going to do quite well against Empire swords and great swords, as long as the great swords don't get a great charge bonus off, which they didn't. because he charged into the back of his own Empire Swordsman. So the Witch Elves of Khaine don't have shields, so they die relatively quickly to missiles, but they do have 2 hit points each, which is pretty important. And they're quite decent in sustained melee combat just because they have good melee stats and 2 hit points. I have my Har Ganeth Executioners moving out here on the flank. He did charge one of his Knights of the White Wolf in there. That's not a good engagement for me. The Knights of the White Wolf will thrash them if they get their charge off. So I've already realized that I'm kind of out of position with the Executioners because I'm trying to outflank him at the moment, which is good. But he's going to have a lot of opportunities to charge his Knights of the White Wolf into those two-handed greatswords, and that's going to be a really big problem for me. So, as you can see, all across the line, melee combat has begun. Did get a rear charge off with the Har Ganeth Executioners. Sounded really drunk right there. But he's going to then charge in behind with the Knights of the White Wolf and do more damage. So you can see a little bit of routing already. The the Witch Elves of Khaine cause some morale penalties. They have a fear effect aura, which is really good as well. I forgot to mention that. So I've already caused some Empire Swordsmen to start routing. Things are looking relatively decent for me so far. And I do have my Assassins in the melee combat. They have 2 hit points as well. Again, no shield and very low armor. So the 2 hit points makes them tank longer than you'd expect them to. But they can still die relatively quickly because they don't have a shield block chance or a lot of armor. So my entire strategy is trying to roll his left flank and then cause a chain route down his line. The big problem for me right now are the Knights of the White Wolf and his really heavily armored cavalry units. They're a big problem for me. They're charging into the backs of my Witch Elves of Khaine, which is not good at all because, again, they don't have a lot of armor to deal with that. And that's something that I really have to worry about. So I'm having some of my repeater crossbows shooting in on the cavalry, trying to get them off the field as quickly as possible. And then over on this flank, I brought one of my repeater crossbowmen into melee, trying to kill some of those skirmishers, take them off the field as well. So he can just kind of cycle charge with impunity at this point. I'm trying to move a Dark Elf Spear over onto that flank to help deflect some of those charges. And he now has his Witch Hunters in melee combat against the remnants of my Har Ganeth Executioners. But over on this flank, what I thought was going really well actually isn't going quite as well as I wanted it to, because I caused some of those morale penalties at the beginning, caused a couple of units to rout, but I haven't really broken that flank as quickly as I would have liked. So Gojira's gonna make a little bit of a micro mistake here, gonna charge in my Dark Elf Spears, and he's not actually gonna notice it right away. Not gonna get too many kills though. You can see how heavily armored those Knights of the White Wolf are. So I did charge Dark Elf Spears in there, but didn't kill as many as I wanted to. And his Witch Hunters are in melee. His Knights Panther are in melee as well, killing some swords. And actually, there aren't very many men left in that general unit at all. So if I can kill his gen, that would be very, very big for me. Gonna get my Black Guard of Nagorond into Spearwall here against some Empire Greatswords. And I do have my repeater crossbows shooting into the flank of those Greatswords. And right here, I noticed something that's actually insane. The Assassins actually do backflips. They do literal backflips. You can see that guy doing backflips right now. I have no idea how they added the animation into this game. Like, there's no way CA added that animation, so it had to be work done by the creators of this mod. But I have no idea how they did that. I think that's so cool they managed to get that into the game. I don't know why you would want to do... Like, I just did a spin kick. Like, I have no idea how they did that. It's so badass. It's so awesome. But, don't know how effective a backflip or a spin kick would be in melee combat when swords and guns are being used, but either way, it looks awesome. Perhaps the creators of this mod is so cool. But, so yeah, on my right flank, things are starting to now look kind of dire. He's got his Witch Hunters in, they're actually quite good in melee combat. He has his Knights of the White Wolf repeatedly hammer and anviling me. I do have spears there, but they just can't seem to tie down his cavalry enough. And then up the middle here, his Knights Panther, only 11 men left in the general unit, going to shoot the gap and go straight for my repeater crossbows. And that's going to be a problem because I don't have any melee troops over to protect them at this point. So I'm going to put them on skirmish mode and run them away. But of course the Knights Panther are calves, so they are going to catch my crossbows. And you can see I'm trying to pull off a couple of melee units to try to catch these guys. He just switched to his lance, That means he just clicked an attack order. But it's at this point, I'm like, okay, my repeater crossbows on horse have done quite well for me, but I need to get them into melee. There are a bunch of skirmish units that are causing a lot of damage to me. These Dark Elf repeater crossbow horsemen can get them off the field, so just alt-click and attack with them, and going to take as many ranged units with me as I can. Repeater crossbows retreating from the Knight's Panther. It doesn't matter that there are only 11 men left in that unit. They will be able to kill all of my repeater crossbows if they get into melee, so I have to kind of run them away. And in the center here, Blackguard of Nagarond and the remnants of the assassins, and a couple of swordsmen as well, are fighting witch hunters who just charge into the flank, and halberds on the front. So this engagement, not looking super great, and then my gen dies, and things are going to get a heck of a lot harder here. So, running my Dark Elf repeater crossbows away, and he's chasing me down. What you want to do in this situation, I have 2 Dark Elf repeater crossbows, so you want to split them, so that he can only go for 1 unit at a time, and then the other one should be able to fire into him. He still has no answer for my repeater crossbow cavalry unit, still doing a ton of damage to these marksmen, and I'm sure they still have plenty of ammunition left, so it's very important that I take these guys off the field, because in a late game situation, on a flat map like this, those marksmen could be a real problem if I don't have any cavalry left. So killing them, very, very important. In the center here, melee fight is starting to go really poorly. He has crossbows shooting into my flank. I did bring one of my Dark Elf swordsmen back, and they are fighting the Witch Hunters, but I think Witch Hunters have 2 HP, which means that I'm not going to be able to cut them down very easily at all. And balance bar is starting to shift in Gojira's favor at this point, and it's getting a little scary for me. So something like a morale shock from killing his gen would be very important and could change things for me. But he is catching up to some of my more important units. And some of the reinforcements here from my Dark Elf spears and Dark Elf swords, going to try to protect the remnants of my Dark Elf crossbows. I haven't lost too many of them so far, but I'm having a really hard time pulling away from this cavalry unit, of course, because horses are faster than infantry, in case you were wondering. But, yeah, a lot of my Dark Elf crossbows aren't actually shooting because they're tied down in melee combat, and I really wanted to start shooting his gen, but I'm having a hard time actually getting those shots off. Very few of my Blackguard of Nagarond are still alive now. Balance bar shifting ever more in Gojira's favor. I'm in spear wall here, but they're surrounded by witch hunters and swordsmen, and that's going to go poorly for me. And the remnants of the Dark Riders, probably up to like 250 or almost 300 kills at this point. They've killed a lot of skirmishers, which was very good. Of course, it'd be a lot better to have an actual dedicated melee cavalry unit that could kill stuff in melee, kill enemy cavalry units. That'd be great. But gonna have to rely on the Dark Elf riders right here. So finally getting some shots off, and this pissed me off. There are 3 guys left in the Knight's Panther. I have repeater crossbows from both flanks firing into this cavalry unit, and they won't die. There are 3 guys left, and yes, they have a lot of hit points, they have a lot of armor, but they're in combat with swordsmen and spearmen, and they're getting shot, and his gen's right there. And if I kill his gen, maybe this battle changes. The course of this battle changes. The balance bar is looking bad for me at the moment, but if I can kill his gen, this battle could go very differently. But he's not dying. I'm shooting him a lot, and now he's got some witch hunters moving up with their pistols, getting some good shots off, and I'm gonna have to move one of my crossbows to start shooting that, because I don't want them to keep getting shots into my guys, especially in a late game situation like this. The morale penalty from gunpowder units is gonna hurt a lot, so definitely want to get them off the field if I can. But his gen is the most important thing, and I just can't kill it at the moment. So I thought this was actually pretty funny. There's one Empire swordsman, the only guy left in his unit, just chilling, and he's like, yes, I finally survived. Oh wait, no, I'm dead. Poor guy. Poor guy. It's actually going to happen to another great sword here in a couple seconds here as well. I don't know why it is in Medieval 2 that morale's so good that there can be only one guy left in a unit and have them not rout. I think it's very strange. But you can see one of my Dark Elf swordsmen running right here, and his witch hunters are going to get some really good volleys off. Kill 5 or 6 of the swordsmen as they're running away, and they're not going to come back, which is really unfortunate. At this point, balance bar has shifted so far, in Gojira's favor that a miracle is the only way I can possibly win this battle. So another good charge from the Dark Riders into some more marksmen here. Going to be able to take that unit off the field. But there's almost nothing left on the field for me. This has gone very poorly, kind of fallen apart here at the end. Empire is one of the stronger factions in the Call of Warhammer mod. And I even asked Gojira before this battle started, I was like, can you go a little bit easy on me, not bring the most OP stuff for Empire? Because if you brought the most OP stuff, this wouldn't even be a battle. But even without bringing all the crazy stuff Empire can field, this is still a really hard matchup for the Dark Elves. Very good charge into the back of the Witch Hunters here, kill 10 or 15 or so, and they're 2 hit point units, so pretty important. But now that they turn to fight me in melee combat, not going to go well for the Dark Riders. Going to pull them out, but only 6 or 7 of them left at this point. And I'm like, what's the most important unit on this field? I want to get at his gen, but his gen's too far away, so Knights of the White Wolf, let's charge at them. One last hurrah for the Dark Elves before they get completely taken off the field. And they're not going to kill anybody. Knights of the White Wolf, too strong. Those Warhammers, too powerful. Too much armor. And the last guy is going to be like, nope, I'm out of here. Or the last 2 guys, I guess, are going to be like, nope, this is bad, we're done. So I think this was the 8th battle I participated or seen the Dark Elves participate in, and I've never seen them win a single battle. This was the closest by far I've seen for the Dark Elves. This one actually ended up being pretty close, but it still wasn't enough. I was playing against kind of a gimped Empire army that didn't bring the most OP stuff they possibly could, but the Cavalry I had absolutely no answer to. I could not deal with the Knights of the White Wolf or the Knights Panther, and he kind of just had free reign with his Cavalry in the back there. So my units got 300 kills, which is really good, but in the end, my army was too small, and it was smaller than his, and he had higher quality troops, which makes it really hard to win with Dark Elves. But I hope you guys enjoyed it anyway. It still was a really fun battle, and I will be bringing you some more Call of Warhammer very soon.